Harry's wife. She can still rule Fash-Onn. A somewhat extraordinary pronouncement by Lisa Armstrong, who is head of Fash-Onn at The Telegraph, who declares the Duchess could have a renaissance in the industry if she chooses her moment correctly. This seems somewhat staggering, given that this is the lady who dresses as Tent by Army Surplus, Teacup by Royal Doulton, Kermit the Frog Goes to Church, Fridge by Valentino, One of Our Jowers is Missing, Pooh Emoji Hat, AstroTurf, Carshag by Skoda, Chairman Mao Visits New York, The Bouncing Berry of Harlem, Overripe Burst Tomato Lady, and Inspector Gadget Gets Booed. A lady who singularly trashes whatever she happens to wear as an inability to accept advice and the delusion of believing that when she looks in the mirror, she sees a Fash-Onn model looking back at her. "Over my dead body," said one independent luxury Fash-Onn consultant, when I, not me, the writer, asked whether they could imagine ever advising any of their clients to sign a sponsorship deal with the Duchess of Sussex. That was early last week, when stories were still circulating about the couple's putative lucrative agreement with Dior. The denial was swift, and came not from Dior but from the Sussex camp. No surprise to anyone who knows anything about the powers who run Dior, a formal contract with the Duke and Duchess, especially one that would supposedly pay Harry's wife $200,000 for every post on her resurrected Instagram account showing her in Dior, the rumour mongers were having a field day, was never anything but entertaining speculation. And of course we all know where that speculation came from. Harry's wife as a desperate attempt to try and get Dior on the hook. The fact is, the Duchess splits opinion dramatically. YouGov reported that Harry's wife is the least popular she's ever been in the United Kingdom, with a positivity rating of -47. Few people are neutral about her. And while for some brands association with a live wire deftly handled can be beneficial, maybe Marmite could pull off a witty, knowing collaboration with the Duchess, it's the last thing Dior, still mindful of the spectacular fallout from its former creative director John Galliano's anti-Semitic ramblings in 2011, wants to ignite. No brand does at the moment. Kanye West's recent, also anti-Semitic related implosion at Adidas, and the outrage directed at Balenciaga at the end of last year for the cavalier way it juxtaposed images relating to child abuse with its product, have confirmed to the industry the need to stay away from anything or anyone that might be contentious. The public mood is too volatile to take risks. Objectively, Harry and Harry's wife have never said or done anything remotely as heinous as Galliano, West or Balenciaga, although their insinuation that the royal family and by extension the UK is institutionally racist was not an endearing move. Lie. Also, of course, revision of history. Harry's autobiography also infuriated many. Personally, says another Fash-Onn industry veteran who's worked with international brands for 2 decades, I don't like what they, the Duke and Duchess, have done. It makes my blood boil. But putting my own feelings aside, they're just too divisive for a big international brand to take on. This view turns out to be a widespread view across a sector which once embraced Harry's wife. Note, nothing about this is racist, although her supporters would try and claim that it is. It is simply this: the way that she has behaved means she's too divisive for the sector to take on. Publicly, the fashion industry's tone is non-committal. No one wants to go on the record criticising the pair in case they're dragged into a social media brouhaha, accused of being envious or out of touch with Gen Z, who have traditionally been more supportive of the Sussexes than other demographics. But nor is anyone gushing. When the Sussexes spokesman confirmed on Monday that the couple weren't officially involved with Dior, the overriding response at the 77-year-old French house was probably relief. It meant it was spared the embarrassment of having to issue its own denial, which might have looked churlish. It's not as if there isn't a precedent for lucrative deals between royal figures and fashion houses. Giorgio Armani dressed Lady Helen Taylor, a cousin of the late Queen, for 2 decades, and as one of the Italian label's official ambassadors, she was flown around the world first class. Charlotte Casiraghi, daughter of Princess Caroline of Monaco, and her late husband Stefano Casiraghi, has had sponsorship deals with Gucci, and currently hosts a cultural podcast for Chanel, wearing the label for almost every public appearance, like her mother. Meanwhile, Zara Phillips has had a slew of paid arrangements with brands such as Land Rover, Musto Sports Clothing and Rolex. The difference is that none of these royal figures and royal adjacents was, unless you're a Republican, particularly controversial. You see, these individuals recognise the value of getting on with what they're doing, and of course, none of them are being driven by narcissism, causing them to act in the way that Harry's wife does. The author states it could have been very different. When Harry's wife went official as Harry's serious girlfriend in 2017 with the Vanity Fair cover, the industry was delighted. Here was a worldly woman, or at least that's what they thought at the time, who knew her way around a Fash-Onn shoot and a showroom. She was good friends with the designer Misha Nonu and stylist Jessica Mulrooney, and was prepared to take a few sartorial risks. At 5 months pregnant, when she unexpectedly appeared on stage at the Albert Hall during the Fash-Onn Awards to present a gong to Claire Waite-Keller, designer of her Givenchy couture wedding dress, the reception really was rapturous. Of course, back then, most of her behaviours had not come to light for the majority of people, or where there were concerns, they didn't really believe or understand what she truly was. Harry's wife didn't just offer a different sartorial point of view to Kate. She openly fangirled the late Caroline Bassetti's sleek minimalism, whereas Kate was more English rose. She was vocal about topics that chimed with the Fash-Onn industry, such as female empowerment, facade management, and inclusivity, facade management. She was also excellent for business. In 2019, fashion search tool List declared her the most powerful dresser of the year, with an average uptick of 216% in searches for outfits similar to the one she wore. Well, that might be that people were searching to ensure they didn't purchase them. When she wore a black M&S autograph jumper for a visit to Brixton in 2018, searches for M&S shot up by 387%, and the jumper quickly sold out. Without question, she shifted product. She still does, on the increasingly rare occasions she wears anything accessible. Harry's wife seems to prefer couture and ultra-high-end labels that only a handful of consumers can afford. Naturally, of course, for someone who claims to be empathic and of the people, she dresses as if she's not, because she actually believes herself to be so far above everybody else and so special that she wanders around in the rarefied stratosphere, utilising her ill-gotten gains for the purchase of clothing without realising how that actually now looks. The author states that other image consultants that she'd spoken to point out that while they find the question of what the Sussexes do next tantalising, it's a complicated issue. Harry's wife might have started out in the entertainment industry in the fringes of Fash-Onn, but her marriage to the Duke redefined her. Rather, it is all that defines her. She's Harry's wife. The dynamics and media energy around royalty are materially different from those of other celebrities. Yet, there are plenty of Harry's wife skeptics who can't help eyeing up her style. It's a common guilty secret. Yes, because people want to look at her and laugh at the ill-fitting outfit she wears. With the right synergy, things might yet look bright for her in the Fash-Onn arena. It's not as if she has no allies in the industry. Edward Enninful, the outgoing editor of British Vogue, gave her an entire issue of the magazine to edit. It was a huge seller. If he goes on to bigger things, collaborations with the likes of Apple, for instance, he may well choose to work with Harry's wife again at some point. Pausing there, I suspect that he would not do so, because in order to have got where he's got to, he's not that much of a fool. The thing about Harry's wife is that she has a genuine love of Fash-Onn, says Dale Westgarth, Senior Vice President of KCD, an international Fash-Onn PR consultancy. You can see from the TIG that she knows how to do the high-low mix while keeping it all very aspirational. While her popularity in the United States has slipped significantly, Westgarth thinks there are still mid-price contemporary brands in the USA that would be willing to work with her in a year or so. Her global reach is still undeniable. That might be the case, but do you think that Harry's wife wants to work with mid-price contemporary brands? No. She sees it as beneath her. She thinks that she is a Fash-Onn model. She thinks that she should only ever be associated with high-end couture. And for her, instead, to have to take contracts with mid-price contemporary brands would be a real fall from grace and would damage her status and amount to a threat to control. Of course, it may be that she has no choice. She needs the money, she'll take what's on offer, but she won't like it. Another route into Fash-Onn apparently would be via her humanitarian credentials. What are those again? Writing on bananas and turning up to do a photo shoot when she should be helping people in Africa. Very humanitarian. The multi-collaborative range for the charity SmartWorks, which he helped propel into existence back in 2019, was an undeniable achievement. If she were to launch a line of clothing that was genuinely sustainable, she could, in time, become a force for good in the industry. Yes, but the thing is with that, it will require hard work and effort, not something she does, because she wants it now, and isn't interested in putting in the hard yards. The article continues and asks, why stop at Fash-Onn? Again, looking back at the TIG, we know Harry's wife's good on all the lifestyle stuff, says Westgarth, except she's not. Just like Gwyneth Paltrow, the founder of $250 million Goop, Harry's wife has, after all, recently taken on Ari Emanuel, the Hollywood agent who's represented inter alia Trump and Oprah, and whose wife, Sarah Staudinger, is the founder and designer of mid-level designer brand Staud. I bet even he's scratching his head thinking, what the fuck am I going to do with this turd? Can't polish it. It would probably be rash to bet against Harry's wife pulling off a multi-digit deal in the ever-forgiving Fash-Onn industry. Get it right, and the possible dividends are vast. Conversely, a false move at this stage would be hard to live down. She's got the connections and the looks. Really? What she needs is patience and unemotional judgment. She may need to work on those. Well, she has no patience and she's not going to work on them, and she doesn't have any unemotional judgment because invariably she's driven by her ignited fury as a consequence of threats to control. So the suggestion that somehow Harry's wife could have a renaissance in the Fash-Onn industry strikes me as simply wishful thinking. She doesn't have the looks. She's not ugly, but there's plenty of other people that are better looking for her. But the most important point is, as well, is she has a strange body shape. And that doesn't help her with regard to modelling clothing, nor finding stuff that fits. And as I mentioned before, she doesn't take advice as to what she should wear. I've explained why that is. Let's have a quick dance through the below-the-line comments to see if there are people agreeing with this proposition that she might somehow be able to salvage herself through Fash-Onn. Graham Cranford-Smith observes, comeback? No. This presupposes she was fashionable in the first place. Marilyn Gibson, I hope that she makes no sort of comeback, Fash-Onn or otherwise. Stuart Roberts, as a middle-aged woman with a poor figure, it's unlikely that a Fash-Onn house will want the person to be the face of its brand. BG, she's an absolute disaster. Her expression is way too needy for her to be cool. S. Hodgson tries too hard and never gets it right. Surprised me. Unfortunately, whilst in the United Kingdom, she became known for wearing outfits that did not suit her body shape. There are a few outfits that look well on her. I doubt very much that a known fashion house who has access to many more suitable candidates would want her. At the age she is, she's old enough to have an early 20s child. LJB Council comes out with some utter tripe here. That headline is appalling. Love or hate her, to describe someone of mixed race, African American heritage as Marmite is a disgusting dog whistle. You can and should do better, Daily Telegraph. Possibly just don't cover her at all. Oh dear. Here we have another clown that's invoking race where it's nothing to do with that. For those of you who might not be familiar with the product Marmite, it's a yeast-based product that you can smear on toast and sometimes dunk in boiling water. The Aussies has Vegemite, which is similar. And Marmite has a reputation for either people really loving it or really hating it. Nobody's particularly neutral to it. And the concept of that has then bled into people, whereby you'll talk about somebody being something of a Marmite character, that people either love them or hate them, but they're not neutral about them, which is what is being described in that vein with regard to Harry's wife. And here we have an example of another clown that sees racist comments where they aren't there. Nina Parkinson responds to this, explaining Marmite has nothing to do with racial insults. Obviously, you've never come across Marmite ads or referrals. Any referral to Marmite comes with the sentence, you either love it or hate it. H.B. Osborne also responds, of all the comments, you are the only person to invoke race. How? Why? It's utterly preposterous and, frankly, kind of embarrassing for you. Marmite, you either love it or hate it. What part of that universally acknowledged phrase, one gleefully embraced by the clever marketing peeps at Marmite themselves, even remotely relates to race? Just stop bringing non-issues around flipping race into a topic about a thoroughly despised and toxic individual by people of all races. One who, ironically, would probably give her left claw to have the number of fans who actually do love her as much as Marmite does. She should be so lucky. Butterplugger also responds, now you mention it, the headline is very funny indeed. On her actress CV, Migraine stated she was Caucasian, so she's white when it suits and black when it suits better. Butterplugger continues, anyway, she's no Fash-Onn leader or maker, just a woman fortunate enough to be lent some expensive clothes, and given that her figure is now following her genes, she won't be a great clothes horse much longer. Deborah Beale. Well said, my first reaction to this piece was astonishment at such a dog whistle. The Sussexes' arguments as the baked-in nature of racism they encounter are only served and proved by headlines like this. Another clown. Somebody responds to that, saying another one who doesn't understand what Marmite means. Perhaps examine your own prejudices. Churcher, they're done. Nothing, and I mean nothing, can change this. Absolute trash should never have been allowed anywhere near our country. The behaviour towards Her late Majesty and the Prince Philip showed you really how low she is, and more so Ginge. Vile, vacuous nobodies. No amount of these tortuous, nauseating articles can redeem them. H.B. Osborne. She has aged horribly in the last few years, way too much surgery, and frankly looks as common as muck, with all those fluorescent orange bronzer and New Jersey housewife hair and makeup gunk she piles on. She gives off Nancy Dell'Olio vibes, but without the cracking figure. Why tippy-toe around it? The public will never buy anything she's flogging. Not anymore. Tainted Goods doesn't even begin to describe how we see her. And that's a global sentiment, judging from the comment section everywhere and on all platforms. Stop feeding her delusional personality disorder with these ridiculous suggestions. She's toxic, loathed, and Markle's absolutely everything she touches. The kiss of death to everything. Butterplugger, one of your earlier posts about migraine is worth repeating. Not many designers have SpongeBob SquarePants as a muse in mind when designing their ranges. Outstanding. Well, comments talk about finding it boring. Who gives a fuck? The article could be cropped at the end of paragraph 1. There's no more to say. Fake tan lines, white bits and excessive use of bronzer is not a look I'd want to aspire to. No support for her other than the two idiots that misunderstood the reference to Marmite. If there is going to be a Fash-Onn renaissance, certainly the readers of the Daily Telegraph are not going to be supporting it. And once again, this smacks of the desperation of Harry's wife to try and reinvent herself, and as I've explained in parts past him, nobody's buying it. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you. for listening.